A virtual reality system, consisting of a head-mounted display and a computer interface glove, was assessed by examining its ability to support interaction with a greatly simplified 3D model of a human brain. Interactions were videotaped, and selected portions have been incorporated into this tape. A number of interface problems were identified. This video focuses on problems with the gestures used to control virtual movement through the dataset, and notes that interface metaphors have an important role in virtual reality design. Here we see a high-quality rendering of the human brain dataset. The dataset consists of contours of a human brain, which have been digitized and transformed into approximately 150,000 polygons. Neuroanatomical structures were tagged so that they could be separately displayed and colored. This animation was created using professional animation software. Each of the 100 frames in this sequence took approximately 15 minutes to compute. A common approach to interacting with a three-dimensional model employs a knob box, an array of continuously rotatable knobs associated with parameters of the rendering transformation. A typical setup would have 3 knobs assigned to rotation about the X, Y, and Z axes, 3 knobs assigned to translation along the same axes, and a knob assigned to scale. Here we see such a system being used to interact with a version of the human brain database. When using a virtual reality system, the user wears an iPhone consisting of a stereoscopic video display and a position sensing device. The video display consists of 2 color LCD screens fitted into a rubber mask. The position of the head is tracked so that, as the head moves, the display is updated, creating the illusion that the wearer is looking around in a static visual environment. The user also wears a computer interface data glove, which allows the computer to sense hand position and configuration, and permits the user to use gesture to directly interact with the data. When the gloved hand is within the user's field of vision, an image of the hand appears in the display. Here we see a view of the iPhone and data glove processing hardware, and the blue receiving units for the position trackers. The user's head and hand positions can be tracked within an approximately 2-meter hemisphere in front of the receivers. Note that the iPhone and data glove are tethered to the processing equipment by cables. The presence of the cables and the limitations of the tracking devices require that the virtual reality user remain aware of constraints in the physical reality. The graphics hardware in the virtual reality system examined could display only 1,200 polygons at the rates necessary to achieve satisfactory interaction. Thus it was necessary to transform the data into a cubist version of the brain model by replacing smooth contours with bounding rectangles and by omitting a number of structures. For the purpose of this videotape, we have edited together live footage of the virtual reality system in use with footage of the virtual world as seen by the user. At times, the user's view will be superimposed over the live footage. Users may navigate through the brain data either physically or virtually. If the brain is in front of the user, physically walking forward will move the user into the brain, turning in place allows the inside of the brain to be scanned, and sitting permits a view up the brainstem. Here we see user interaction via physical movement. Movement in the virtual reality via real-world locomotion and head motion worked quite well. The correspondence between real-world movement and movement in the virtual world is sufficiently accurate that there is no need for the user to consciously translate intent to the action necessary to achieve that intent. It was very natural to walk towards the brain, have it get bigger, and then be inside it. There was almost no learning necessary to interact with the dataset in this way. The only difficulty with this type of movement was that, in spite of the greatly simplified dataset, there was still a bit of jerkiness when the image moved in sync with the user's head movements. Users also need to move virtually through the data without corresponding physical movement because the constraints of the physical environment may prevent the user from getting to parts of the model. Pointing with a forefinger allows the user to fly forward. Pointing with 2 forefingers permits backwards flight. Here we see user interaction via gestural command. The evaluation of the virtual reality interface revealed several problems in the gestures used to control virtual movement. The gesture used to fly, pointing, is too common and natural. Both evaluators accidentally flew a number of times, often because we would unconsciously point at something we were describing. Both gestures lack a meaningful connection with the commands they invoke, and thus lack intuitive ways of controlling flight speed or direction. Such gestures will be difficult to learn and remember in systems with more complex command sets. Here we see a user interacting with the virtual reality system. The soundtrack was recorded during the interaction.
See, I know what the brainstem looks like without this boxy representation, but even there you can still see the, okay, don't point at things. You can still see the way everything kind of rests on it. It has two projections out to the side. That one just sits on top of it, which is the yellow thing. And right here at the bottom, that's where the spinal cord attaches. And then right immediately above the spinal cord, it branches into it's two short projections. And it's also closely merged with the cerebellum, which is a large purple thing.
To achieve adequate interaction rates, the brain dataset had to be simplified into unusability. Nevertheless, the virtual reality environment allowed us to interact with the data far more easily and naturally than ever before. While virtual reality environments currently lack the power to support this kind of visualization, they are of sufficient power to serve as test beds in which to address the new interface design challenges they raise. With continued research and with increases in hardware capabilities, virtual reality systems will open new vistas in scientific visualization.